How did you get into like this wine industry? Like, what was the motivation?
Well, when we moved to Oregon from California...
What year was that?
It was about late 70s.
Late 70s?
Yeah. And the wine industry was very, very small. And as a transplant from California and growing up, going to the Napa Valley, we were intrigued by the idea of Oregon having a wine industry. I mean, who, what? So we started going out there for various and sundry activities, and we met people early on.
That was like you went to like Dundee and that area?
Well, I remember going to Ken Wright. We used to go to Ponzi. We used to do the things on Sundays where they had music. Were you here then?
Well, that was at Sokolblosser when they had the music there?
No, those were those great big huge concerts. But Sunday afternoons they had jazz out on the lawn in front of Ponzi. They had it at Elk Cove. They'd have jazz musicians. They'd had it at, I think it was Schaefer, out in Washington County. Just take the Sunday paper, picnic lunch, sit on the lawn, listen to jazz, drink wine. It was fabulous. But we made the acquaintance of some of the people that were pretty early in the industry at that time. I was very active in civic activities in Portland as well, so I met people who had connections with the wine industry, one of whom was Paul Hart, who owned Rex Hill, of course. And I was a development director in the nonprofit sector. And about the time I decided that I didn't really want to do that anymore. That's a burnout kind of occupation as well. They were looking for a part-time executive director for the Yamhill County Wineries Association, which at that time had 29 wineries.
Is that right? 20. And wait, now what year was that?
1989.
1989.
No, that's is that right? I have to go back and look. Maybe no, it has to be later than that because the association started about a couple of years earlier than that. So it would be mid-90s, I guess. It's been over 10 years now. So at any rate, I applied for this job, and it turned out Paul Hart was on the board. He had to recuse himself for the interview process, but I remember that Paul asked me after they offered me the job if I would make one commitment, and that was to stay at least a year. And that was more than 10 years ago.
So here you are.
Yeah, and we had 29 wineries, and now we have 168.
Wow. So, you have quite a perspective in that kind of growth. Give me like a 2-minute history of, and as much of the Oregon wine industry as you know, from your perspective, from where you're sitting. Like a 2-minute history.
Well, the change is just in the numbers. And, of course, the acknowledgement of the consumer and the world at large that this indeed is a viable and outstanding and wonderful wine-growing region.
Do anything specific come to mind, any particular story or, some specific incident that just said, whoa, yeah?
I think that's more recent. The huge acclaim that Oregon wine is getting is really in the last few years. So that's after the fact. The rest of it was just kind of a slow, gradual change and growth with more people coming. I think the thing that intrigues me and that I'm so enamored with in this industry is the passion and the commitment of the people who have made the choice to go into the wine industry. Not now when it's so popular, but then. And beyond the David Letts and the very beginners, you all know the stories of the earliest pioneers, but the people that followed them, the young people now that leave other professions and who've come and done an amazing job. I'm so impressed with the quality of the people, the personalities, the intelligence, the integrity, all of the qualities of people that you admire really are in these people that have made the decision to go into the wine industry in Oregon long before it was thought that it would be the success that it is now.
Now, what years are you thinking there? Because I'm thinking like multi-generations.
Well, obviously the early ones, which we know, but then in the 10 years since, up until the time that you began to get investors, which we're beginning to get now.
Yeah.
Let's leave them off because they're a different category. I'm talking about the people who are still farming their own land, that have been here for 10 years or 15 years. And, the young people like the J.K. Carriers or Jim Prosser and that group, Josh Bergstrom, and that have made a commitment to just growing quality Pinot Noir and studying. They study, they travel abroad, they learn, and again, the thing that I've seen because of my experience in Oregon Pinot Camp is the collaboration between the people that are in this industry, and it is to be admired because it doesn't exist anyplace else. Through Oregon Pinot Camp, we've had at least 250 campers a year for 8 years here. And every single one of them says that. When they leave here, they have never seen anything like the collaboration, cooperation, and respect and caring that the people in this industry have for one another. And they share how they've gotten to the point and they've helped each other. And it doesn't exist anyplace in the world. People that come to Oregon Pinot Camp have traveled to events all over the world and have traveled to regions all over. And they don't see it.
Yeah.
And I think that Oregon is unique. Of course, I happen to love it, but I think that...
Even if you're from California originally.
Well, I know, but that was a long time ago. So I don't claim it anymore, even though I call myself a Californian.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about that uniqueness. What is it that makes Oregon so unique, like the wine industry here, as opposed to, say, New Zealand or Australia or even France?
I don't know those wine-growing regions other than drinking them. So I can't speak to the people. My only other experience within a region is in California, in Santa Barbara and Napa. And to me, those regions, probably if you could still visit small wineries and get some of the same feeling that you have here. But it's so big and it's so commercial in California, and in Oregon, it just simply is not. These are people who care desperately about their trade, but they care desperately, I think, about the land as well. And that's the other thing that, to me, is a lesson that is learned personally and that I like to carry away from the industry and into my own life, which is the environmental aspect of how these people, they're all stewards of the land, and they care desperately about taking care of it for future generations and doing the very best they can.
Can you give me a specific example, something that comes to mind when you think of stewards of the land, or maybe something that someone has done?
All of the people that are farming organically, that are avoiding pesticides and trying to keep a balance in the soil and using natural remedies to combat things, and certainly the people that are building new facilities that are paying attention to sustainability as far as building products and construction practices are concerned. I mean, Stoller, of course, has the highest level of accreditation given. I think they have gold, not platinum, but I mean that's outstanding. Sokol Blosser does, and they're of course a very, very green winery. And Susan Sokol Blosser has just been amazing with what she has done for sustainability issues. In Oregon Pinot Camp, we have one entire workshop in the afternoon in the vineyards that's what it's about, is sustainability and farming practices. So it's a very serious issue. And certainly California is starting to do it, but, we were definitely the leaders in that field.
I wonder what it is about, is it like the Oregon culture, or what is it that allows that seed to grow, that idea of sustainability and that organic, and what is it about Oregon that allows that to happen?
I don't think anybody's ever really quite figured out the Oregon mystique or what it is about the personalities of people here, but it certainly is part of it. Maybe it has to do with the independent spirit coming to the Northwest. I mean, it's still the Northwest. It isn't. It isn't quite as easy a lifestyle as, and certainly not as bad as the Midwest and the Deep East. But there is something independent about the spirit here, and people love the out of doors, and just have a deep respect for the land.
Yeah.
I couldn't possibly begin to explain it, but it's a lovely thing to see.
Yeah. And you see that much stronger here than in California.
I think so.
Yeah.
Even though we're beginning to read that they're doing much more, and they have to. I mean, everybody has to.
If you want to maintain the industry.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. I've got to check my notes here to make sure that I've got to cover a certain amount of stuff. So when you started becoming familiar with the Oregon wine industry, what kind of differences do you see now from when you were, first starting to rub elbows with, with some of the winemakers and some of the owners and things?
Because I'm not a grower or a winemaker, I can't be precise, but my opinion is that they have just gained in experience by working together again and finding new methods, having to produce quality in spite of bad vintages. It's much more difficult, as everybody knows, to grow Pinot Noir, and here they have had to learn as they grew, because we were such an infant in the wine industry, and I think the practices have been remarkable. I mean, they've learned how to handle the weather, vagaries of the weather and different situations. I mean, farming is difficult.
It certainly is. You're very dependent on the weather.
So, that's, again, I'm sure, just like anything in the world is based on experience. So, you learn something by this year, and changes when the weather is slightly different, and they're all students of their craft.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how much the people in the wine industry travel to other regions of the world.
To?
Not just leisure travel. I mean, to travel to wine regions, to meet with people, to study their methods, and to learn.
Yeah.
And they go every place. It's amazing.
One of the reasons why I asked that question about, what kind of differences do you see is 2 or 3 days ago I was interviewing Ryan at Domaine Serene. What's his name? The winemaker there.
Well, at Domaine Serene, it's Tony Reiner.
Tony, yeah. And he was telling me what he's striving for, and I had just that morning read the interview that I had with a couple of interviews I had with Dick and Nancy Ponzi, and I was thinking, Tony is you wouldn't be here without those guys, having done all this thing, and that's why I wanted to ask you, because you have really kind of a unique perspective, because you're kind of looking over all of these wineries from a little bit of a distance, but yet you're on the inside, and that's why I was kind of curious, what kind of differences do you see now, as opposed to when you were, first.
I think the differences that I see is more who's coming into it now.
And who's coming into it?
The people that are business people that are not farmers. That own the land. And this isn't to say that they're not as passionate or as involved or that they won't be as successful. But they're different. They're not the same as the people who have really come up from the beginnings and started before it was Oregon Pinot Noir was such a hot commodity.
Yeah.
There's a lot more money coming in from outside of the region. These have been mostly family farms for the longest time. When you used to go out to the holiday weekends, you would find the owners and the winemakers pouring wine and visiting with people. And that still takes place in the smaller ones, but the larger ones, there's too many people. You can't really do it that way. So, we have seen a piece of Oregon wine history in the period since we moved here from California, because it goes back long enough that the wine industry was so small, and it'll never be the same. When the Eraths sell to a big company like San Michel, that changes drastically, and we'll continue to see those changes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are seeing people who are still committed to the Oregon story and the Oregon Pinot Noir story as well. I think one of my favorite, well, that's not true. They're all my favorites, but we have a small winery called Zevo Wines, and he makes his wines at Walnut City Wine Works with another whole group, and he is a surgeon, and his wife is an attorney, and his wine is his passion. And he does have a vineyard. I mean, he does it all. He's the winemaker. I mean, he's out there tending his grapes. I mean, he's not there probably quite as much as, somebody who doesn't have another demanding profession. But he is a very, very good winemaker and very, very committed.
Yeah.
So and he's very small. His production is very small.
Yeah.
So those people continue to bring wonderful things to the Oregon wine industry.
When you say they bring wonderful things, what kind of things are you thinking about?
Well, that continuing commitment to quality. And the passion to produce, world-class wines in this region.
Yeah.
So, even though they haven't been here for years and years and years and years and farming forever and ever and ever, and that's the only thing they do, there are people like that bring some wonderful things as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many new wineries there are that even I don't hear their names. It used to be that you'd know when there were new wineries. Somebody mentioned to me in an email yesterday, my PR person, she had such and such a Pinot this weekend, and I said, who is that? And it was somebody who's been kicking around the wine industry for years, worked for Brickhouse, worked for Cameron, now he has his own label.
I know who that is. And, it's amazing. As you were saying, it's like there's new money coming in, but it's like I can think of quite a few people like that have worked for other wineries, and then they just have to start doing. They start with 12 acres because that's all they could afford, and they built up this little hut because that's all they could afford.
Yeah, that's different than the investors that are coming in and buying up the land and
there's the investors that think of profit, and then there's the middle group of like the surgeon that you're talking about. I think there's quite a few people like that are coming in. And building wineries because they for a variety of reasons.
Exactly. So we still have those adventuresome people making the plunge and taking the risk, because it is not without risk. Farming of any kind, but particularly trying to raise grapes in a climate in the Northwest.
Yeah. Well, even the investors, it's a risk for even the investors that are coming, like PERS.
They're not getting their feet dirty and their hands dirty, though.
No, they're not, but they're putting, like they're putting their necks out in terms of like the financial aspects, and that's their job, is to have a financial return. And so they're thinking that...
No question. And to expand, some people bring in partners, even the smaller wineries that are still owned, that will bring in investors, and those investors expect a return.
Yeah.
I remember way back when one of the early things that we used to do was to go to Adelsheim Vineyard when it was in their house up on the top of the hill above one of their first vineyards, and they had an activity called, or an event called Rain Revels. I can remember standing... Rain Revels. And I don't remember what time of year it was, but I remember standing under their deck in the backyard, and there was some music playing someplace, some kind of bluegrass or something or other, and it's pouring down rain, dripping on my head. But it was, those are the times.
Yeah.
when it was small and, before we had any big wineries here, as far as big facilities.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about are like the personalities that make this industry. It seems that there's a lot of strong personalities that are involved in here. And early on, it's like when I listened to, like I'll call them the pioneers, the post-prohibition pioneers. It's like a lot of those personalities were really strong personalities. What kind of personalities come to your mind, like specifically, that you think made the industry, the Oregon wine industry, go forward?
This tremendous tenacity.
Can you think of some specific instance or specific person's tribulation or?
Well, because I live and work in the city, my visits to the wine country are for a meeting or visits as a wine consumer. So I learn about those stories by reading Susan Sokolblosser's book. I don't know what happened behind the scenes in the wineries, but I just see from the personalities that I've worked with just this tremendous dedication to quality, to perseverance, and all of the qualities that we've talked about earlier today. And you couldn't have an industry that grew without those kinds of leaders.
Yeah.
And in Oregon Pinot Camp, which working on its 9th year now, we are watching some winery people come forth and assume the growth and leadership, because the paper this morning had Susan Sokolblosser stepping down as president of Sokolblosser Winery, and her 2 children are taking over. And that is going to happen more and more. So we need this younger group of people coming along with the same dedication to making it happen. Oregon Pinot Camp was a brilliant, brilliant idea that has brought more people, important people, to Oregon in the trade than any other event possibly could. And the IPNC, of course, has brought consumers over the years, but this Oregon Pinot Camp brought the people that work in the trade, the people that sell the wine in the marketplace, from restaurants, sommeliers to retail stores. And that group of beginning wineries, which again, there's the same people, David Adelsheim and Pat Dudley and Harry Peterson Nedry, and, they're the ones that created this marketing gem, which Oregon Pinot Camp is brilliant. And nobody else in the country is yet to replicate anything like Oregon Pinot Camp. So I think that those people had that vision to turn the tables. Instead of getting on an airplane and flying from market to market to market with your product, you bring the market to you.
Yeah.
And the wine professionals to you, and show them what we're all about and why it's difficult to grow here, and take them into the vineyards and walk them around. And those are the kinds of minds, the people that created Oregon Pinot Camp, that of course have been at the beginning of the entire wine industry.
Yeah.
And our campers are thrilled to see the Dick Erass and the David Letts.
To meet them?
Oh, absolutely. It's like starstruck.
Yeah, yeah. Can you concisely tell me what Oregon Pinot Camp is?
Oregon Pinot Camp is a group of 50 wineries that is selected every year to participate, because we have more than 50 wineries that want to participate.
Yeah.
We invite 270 campers from around the United States and Canada. Actually, we've had a couple from UK and Japan working with the Oregon Wine Board Export Committee. And these are people that are first line, top of the line retail or restaurant sommeliers, the people that sell the wine to the consumer. And we educate them. It is an educational forum for 3 days. They are in workshop starting in the morning, tasting workshops, other vineyard workshops, and then a 3rd day of kind of open curriculum by choice kind of fun activities, but 3 full days of education about Oregon Pinot Noir.
So each one of the 50 wineries that are the wineries that are what the educators will say. They're responsible for certain curriculum.
No, they're not at all.
Oh, they're not.
We have a board and committees and subcommittees, and we have 6 workshops, and everybody goes to all 6. They cycle through 3 a day for the 2 days of the fixed agenda.
Uh-huh.
And each of those workshops has a committee with a moderator and panelists that are carefully selected, and the curriculum is designed and written by the people on the panels, mostly the moderator. And we do change it from year to year. We don't start all over. We refine it, and we get questionnaires from our input from our campers and make changes according to what they suggest to try to improve it the next year. But the focus is we have one workshop on white wines, and we have 2 in the vineyards, one on farming practices and one on sustainability. We have 2 then on Oregon Pinot Noir style and different vintages, and then another one is a film that we've done called The Story of Oregon Pinot Noir, and it's the history. So everybody goes to that first.
Yeah, to get kind of a historical perspective.
And we put them on school buses, and they travel in small groups of 45. Each workshop is 45, except for the vineyard. So they're small, and they have face-to-face an opportunity to have a dialogue with the moderators, and then our panelists take it very, very, very seriously. It's an extraordinary event.
Yeah, I know I have some of the panelists are clients, and I've spoken with some of them, and they do take it very seriously.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. When you look back in your time with the Oregon wine industry, and it seems like industry's kind of, like there's high points and low points. What are some of the high points, or maybe what are some of the peaks, would you say, from the time that you've seen and been associated with the...
Probably the most gratifying is to see the Oregon wines get credit for what they are. I mean, within the press, obviously you are always dependent on wine press. But for the acknowledgement by the media and by the consumer that this indeed is an extraordinary region and that the wines are exceptional. And that obviously is the thing that it's just increased over the years. Obviously, as the product's gotten better, I'm sure it's much better than it was when people first started making it. But there's that educational component, that they've learned as they have produced, and it's gotten better and better and better. People want to come here. I mean, that's the one thing that I see
People like the
now.
Consumer type of people want to come. And they want to come because...
They want to come because they're reading about Oregon Pinot Noir. I mean, there are certainly other varietals as well, but specifically Oregon Pinot Noir. It's not all because of Sideways.
Well, they'd all be going to Santa Barbara then.
That's right. I get calls all the time from travel agents now. I mean, this is something that never used to happen. Of people that are putting together groups to come to Oregon to wine taste. We need to open a little separate subchapter corporation over here and do Oregon travel for travel agents. So I think the credit given to the wines and the increase in people's knowledge, and that is again one of the mission of the Willamette Valley Wineries Association is to create more awareness and knowledge of the Willamette Valley as a destination and the quality of its wines. And the Oregon Wine Board, of course, is doing a great job of promoting the whole state.
Yeah.
And we just happen to be the largest wine growing part of the state, so we do more than our share.
Yeah. When you think about, for you personally, what has been like a high moment, something that maybe that you had this idea and it worked. I mean, it was just really a successful kind of a thing. So for you personally, like a high moment.
I don't know that I can think of one of those. I just always feel blessed to work in this industry because I'm surrounded by such extraordinary people.
Extraordinary in terms of?
Just how amazing they are.
Amazing. I'm trying to picture what amazing is. I mean,
all the things that we've already talked about. They're. I think I'm constantly amazed at the intellect, the intelligence of the people, the level of education that so many of them have achieved, and their backgrounds. They're just intriguing. And you're doing all these interviews. You'll have found that already, and will find it more.
Yeah.
And the things that they have done in their past lives and that they continue to do, it's just astounding.
Yeah.
So high points. I think looking back and seeing where we started with the kinds of materials that we had with 29 wineries and what we have now, that we have done a really good job of promoting our region and getting the information to people in a way that's useful, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Can you think of anything, like maybe a specific incident that you just, read something or you saw something and some New York newspaper or something and you said...
I do that all the time.
Do you?
I do. I have to do it all the time. I mean, just one little bell rings or a light goes off over here. I think, maybe that'll work. There's no specific thing. I mean, it's just a daily kind of attitude that you have about this wine region, this whole area that makes it special, and you just do what you have to do to enhance that.
Yeah.
And I wish I had some magic words, but I don't.
Well, I'm not looking for magic words. I'm just looking for like a specific kind of event or something that's happened that you just thought was, whoa, this, today, that just made my day. It made my day, kind of an event.
Maybe I'll think of that and call you later.
All right.
I remember the first Oregon Pinot Camp. I know I jumped between Oregon Pinot Camp and the Willamette Valley Wineries Association, but they're different, but I'm equally involved in both of them.
Uh-huh.
But the first year of Oregon Pinot Camp, I think at Rex Hill, that's where the first event was, that dinner.
What year was that?
It was 2000.
2000.
Mm-hmm. There were several incidents that happened that day, but we had our campers on yellow school buses, and if you're setting up for an event at one winery in some places out in Yamhill County, you can see across the hill to another one.
Uh-huh.
And I could see a tent someplace, and this wasn't the first year, this actual part with my vision of the school buses, but I could see from Sokolblosser over to Domaine's Ruin, where the a huge tent was set up for a dinner.
Uh-huh.
And I could also see yellow school buses, a long ways away, and I just got chills. I mean, goosebumps going up and down my arms and thinking, oh my Lord, it's happening. We've gotten these people, 275 campers all over the United States. They want to come, they want to be here. And look at them, they're running around on these yellow school buses all over the hills. And this thing magically unfolded in front of our eyes, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. And Rex Hill was the first one, and it did work. And to see these people all gathering there in front of, we had a tasting at one level, and then the dinner was through the gardens, and it was like the train had left the station. There was nothing we could do to stop it, and it was magically unfolding in front of our eyes.
The train was going through beautiful landscape.
It was, but the fact that we pulled it off, that we actually pulled it off and made it happen. And that first year, I do remember a board meeting in January of 2000, and our board said, maybe we need another year. Maybe we can't pull this off.
One more year of planning, one more year of putting it together.
Because we had just started in the fall,
Uh-huh.
and maybe we need to do it in 2001 instead of 2000. And I bit the bullet and I said, we can do this. And I thought, because they believed me, and that was scary.
Uh-huh.
It was scary, and from then on, I had to believe that we could do it. There were a lot of sleepless nights.
I was going to ask you how you slept those nights.
Not well.
Wow.
And that's why at Rex Hill, seeing it that day, it was probably tears running down my face or something. But it was a miracle to see it happen. And I think they all felt that way too.
Yeah.
That we'd created that.
Well, it certainly is a successful event now.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
People just clamor to come to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and we're starting year 9. We're off and rolling.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, that's that. I guess, looking at if you string the two things together, that
String the two.
Meaning Willamette Valley Wineries Association, my experiences, and Oregon Pinot Camp. And they're so intertwined because they're all the same wineries.
Yeah.
That the emotional highs come from seeing what Oregon Pinot Camp has done, because it brings people right here, and we send them away at the end of Oregon Pinot Camp converted. They become disciples.
I'm kind of curious. How do you choose the potential disciples?
Each winery submits 20 names, and they work with their distributors, who's out in the marketplace, who's doing really a good job with our product and who's interested in it. And so those names come in, and then we sift through it for obvious reasons. We don't bring distributors at this first level of invitation. We just do retail and restaurant.
Uh-huh. And do you have a set of criteria that you use?
That they're decision makers in their profession. That they help select wine lists in restaurants, or they make selections for wine retail shops.
And they don't necessarily have to like Pinot.
They better. They better be interested in Pinot and wanting to learn more.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So when you look out to the future, it's like you've been in the industry now for how many years was it again?
Over 10.
Over 10.
I can't even remember. I think it was 1996 or thereabouts.
Something like that.
So, yeah.
When you look out to the future, from that kind of a perspective, what do you see on the Oregon horizon here in terms of the wine industry? Like what kind of change?
Larger, probably more large wineries. Outsiders. Investors, people coming in.
You mean those nasty people from California?
No, I would never say that. I think that the demand is creating change. The demand for the product is creating change. So the small wineries will continue to improve and grow. But I think that we will see more people come in because they think they can make money on their investment.
Because they've already seen success.
And they know that the product is in demand. And I don't think it'll be like Merlot. I don't think it's going to go out. And I think what we saw happen with Erath, in that case, there wasn't a second generation. And so somebody came along, in this case, a big corporate winery, and I think that's likely to happen. It almost happened with Rex Hill, except for Bill Hatcher. coming along. So hopefully there'll be more of these Crowleys and these little teeny guys starting with their, and there'll always be those, because Napa has them too. I mean, they have their cult wineries down there. So,
but the dues are a little bit higher there.
Yes, the dues are indeed higher.
Yeah.
I think we'll begin to, because of the interest in tourism, see some more resort-type lodging, although it will be difficult with our land use. But Newburgh has that wonderful but they've done that within their, the urban growth boundaries, and that's good. But and then there's the big fight about the one up on the hill out in the middle of our wine country. But we do need that kind of destination housing, as long as it doesn't get out of hand and it isn't built on, expensive or usable agricultural land that would be better suited for grapes. But we do need to we have wonderful restaurants in wine country.
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're a little behind on the lodging.
Yeah. What else do you see, when you look out to the future? And we're looking out, say, 20 years. What do you see the landscape like?
I see myself being very old.
But with age comes wisdom and perspective.
Well, you've been around this planet a long time too. We all can look back. I mean, I grew up in San Francisco. My father played golf at the Olympic Club, and we used to drive out to the golf club, and there was nothing there between where we lived on the Twin Peaks out to the golf club. It was just open land. And then, as I was growing up, it became subdivisions, little tracks. We used to call them, ticky-tacky little boxes, because they were all the same, And here, because of land use in Oregon, that won't happen. But we're seeing huge change out there.
Yeah.
Even with some of the residential areas that have started to creep up the hills a little bit. And there are areas out in the Carlton area, I know, that developers have snagged great big pieces of property, so it won't look the same. The landscape won't look the same. The wine country will continue to be beautiful and it'll be protected, but there'll be just much more growth surrounding it, I'm sure, because that's progress, isn't it?
That's a huge issue, and where we live in the rural hills up above Sherwood, between Sherwood and Newburgh, and we have two neighbors they own huge pieces of property, and when 37 came in, they were starting to subdivide, and I'm not sure now with 49 if they've been vested far enough. I mean, it gets real technical about how all this works. Whether they're still going to be able to do it. And one of the guys, the neighbor that's right below us, it would be prime vineyard land. It'd be prime vineyard land. Just above us is one vineyard, and then the road that comes up to our area, there's 4 vineyards on Chapman Road. 4 vineyards. So that's
who's up there? Who's on Chapman Road?
I forgot. Like the guy that owns it now has got a really nice vineyard. Really takes good care of it. And then Elliott sells to. It used to be Rex Hill, now to A&Z.
I don't know Chapman Road. I'm
It's Sleigh Bell's Christmas
that
shop.
Way.
That
okay,
road.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking the other side of 99.
There's only a couple of vineyards up there that I know of. One is real recent, and they're both small, private, kind of people that are just making their own wine. And
Jim Prosser just bought 40 acres up there. He's going to put a vineyard in.
Where?
I'm not sure, but in the Sherwood area.
Well, now Pamplin is. He just cleared a whole new big area, just on the other ridge.
Bell Road.
Yeah, and that's like we can see what he's doing from where we are.
It says 40 beautiful acres of grape ground, just 3 miles to the east, and into the hills on Parrot Mountain.
Okay, I wonder where that is. That must be off of Heater Road then. It must be off of Heater Road because there's a parcel. Oh no! Wait a second. There was two parcels of land for sale up there. One is on Heater Road, and the other's I can't remember the name of that road.
It has timber on it now. He has a lot of work to do. It's not cleared.
Well, that's what Pamplin pulled a lot of big trees off of where he's putting in a new vineyard up there.
We took a drive up behind Harry's Chehalem up that road.
That goes by his Coral Creek.
Yes, Coral Creek, and it goes winding on up. We got way up here to the top of that mountain, and there's huge 2 pieces of property that have been graded. I don't know what's going in there. They're enormous lots. And I don't know if it's for subdivision. I don't know how they can be building up there, frankly, but it's been cleared, so I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, boy, I ride my bicycle out there, and I'm not sure. I've watched them, clear those. I don't know what they're going to do with those either. Yeah. But anyway, like that kind of change, happens a lot. Yeah, and then, it's like the vineyard guys don't want to be next to a subdivision because, like, when they spray sulfur or something like that, the people are going to complain.
Well, and they complained last year. We did a press release to the newspapers just before harvest about the cannons.
Oh, yeah.
And how, the subdivisions now are butting right up against them. Well, that's part of living in an agricultural area, and I think it helped, to explain to people why they use the cannons and that the birds can, take away your harvest in days. I mean, boom, they're ripe, and those birds descend, and you have no more wine.
Yeah.
So they're, as I say, it's not an easy industry. To be a farmer is, you have to be tough.
Yeah, yeah. What else do you see in the future? We talked about the land. We talked about the money coming in.
I think, the concern would be, of course, global warming would change our industry dramatically.
How so?
Well, if it heats up, we won't be growing Pinot Noir here.
Yeah, but there's always Cab.
Yeah, but those of us that came from California that used to drink Cab now like Pinot Noir. Right now, I see that there's still a lot of young people that are driven by the passion that our original pioneers were, and that will continue to improve the quality of Pinot Noir in Oregon and increase its popularity. And that's how I see. Beyond that, I don't want to go out too much further than that. But right now, other than the obvious changes, the infusion of cash and people building larger facilities that are fancier, the thing that we like to tell visitors when they call about coming to the Willamette Valley is this is not a Napa experience.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even think about it. There's one group of a travel agent who's bringing from the Midwest 16 to 20 people next summer, took her group, the same group, to Napa last year. I said, if you're looking for Napa, you're going to be surprised. I hope, it will be, I know you will love it. Your travelers will love it.
Mm-hmm.
But don't expect that kind of an experience here. It's not like at all. And so I've told her all of the positives and how different it will be. And I have no concern, but that they won't find it perfectly wonderful. But they need to know that it isn't Napa.
Yeah, yeah.
Particularly when it comes to lodging in the wine country, when you can go to places like Auberge du Soleil and in the Napa Valley, and
yeah,
and you have choices, many choices there, and you don't here.
Yeah.
So.
But I think, I still have a lot of friends that come from Napa, and I show them around. And I'm from Napa. I grew up there, rode my bicycle. I know that country really, really well, saw it change. And it's like I and my friends that come up just say it's more beautiful here.
Oh,
I mean, it is just flat out more beautiful.
It is. There's no question about it. People are blown away by by
Yeah.
Oregon.
And I'm finding it's like I'm just now starting to sell prints, and I've got some things in Argyle, a couple little wineries and stuff like that. And I get calls once a week from Indiana, from Minnesota. Oh yeah, we were at Argyle. We saw one of your prints. We want a big one because we were remodeling our living room. And so it always amazes me. It's like once a week I'm getting these calls from all over the United States of people that have been to Argyle or have been to, like the wineries.
I know. It's
here.
astounding.
Yeah.
It's astounding. I don't know if you know Cliff Anderson from Anderson Family Vineyard.
It's like that's one vineyard that people keep telling me I need to go there, and I've not been there yet.
Well, he's a man who I did not know his background either, and I won't even be able to tell you who the agencies are that he's worked with. But when we started sending out the information to our wineries about producing our new brochure last year, I said that we'd gotten so large that we were going to have to reduce the copy for each winery, and that we were really only going to put their listing in and not give them any text.
Yeah.
And he called and he was distressed about that. And because he felt that it was a way for them to tell the consumer what was unique about them and why they should come to see them. Well, he has a background in marketing and PR with top national firms. I mean, he has a huge resume. And so I said, well, do you have any idea how we might do that? And so he actually came here one day, and I got the flu and couldn't come. So he met with Rick and with my graphic designer, and they took copious notes and did a great job. And we used his ideas about how we could reduce the amount of copy. But he said, you should be able to say it in just a few words. And he said that our brochure and our website drive more traffic to his little teeny tiny open by appointment only winery than anything else he does.
Is that right?
And he knows it because he asks the people, because he's so small. And he sells out of his wine.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
So anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, I just said Cliff Anderson and then another background, but yeah, he grew all of his grapes for other people before he started making his own very, very small production. But I love the fact that he sells out, and it's people find him because of the copy, these few little lines of copy he writes about his little spot there in Yamhill County where he's just off of North Valley Road. But anyway, there's a lot of people like him too. And Dick Shea, I mean, he's a banker from New York, and he is a farmer now. He is a farmer.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stories like that. Brickhouse. Quite a few stories.
Oh, exactly.
Like that. Now, you're not a farmer, but you're associated with a lot of people that are in the vineyard and that are, being passionate about the things that they do in the vineyard and then in the winery itself. What kind of lessons have you learned from these people about life? You're not doing the work in the vineyard, you're not doing the work in the wineries, but you're watching these people and you're rubbing elbows with these people that are doing that.
Oh, I think I take away all kinds of lessons from them. Lessons about living life.
What does that mean?
Well,
what do you mean?
To love what you do. They have given up other careers and life choices to do what they do, and they love it. And that's why I think we see in these people is this joy, of their life choice. And that certainly is a wonderful thing for all of us to learn. And the issue of the land. I've, in spite of growing up right in the middle of San Francisco, I have some of those earthbound roots in my feet too, I think. And I have a huge respect for the land. And I more and more and more I learn from them, from the sustainability workshops for OPC to just their farming practices. And I try to teach it. I try to take it to what I've learned to friends and family.
Anything in particular come in mind, like a specific event or specific...
That whole reduce, recycle, reuse philosophy that has been around forever. I used to think that we were doing our bit by just be sure it gets recycled, but more and more, because again, their influence.
Because of the winemakers and
yes, the people in the wine business. I think, do I really have to buy that? Look at that packaging. No, I don't need a bag when I leave the store. No, I'll carry a different bag. Reuse it. Don't recycle it. Reuse it. Find those kinds of things. For me, on a daily basis, I try to implement, and it's a direct result of the influence. And it's because these are people I have so much respect for.